someone here has used the word nerdy when what they really wanted to do was use the word geeky. I have the flu, so I may not Picard, because he's a gentleman. Usually a wizard, almost always a wizard. Later editions of D&D, I actually like the rogue that has taken the place of the thief, which is just as sneaky but less into stealing, but otherwise wizard. It depended on who was teaching it and what was happening that year, but the best class I ever took would be Multicultural Resources from Mary Kay Biagini at the University of Pittsburgh School of Information Sciences, a course which involved going on field trips and eating. When I think of a Patronus, I think of a powerful animal that would protect you, and I want to go with a bear. But if we're actually going with our actual spirit animal, or our Philip Pullman type demon type animal, I'd probably be a robin. So I guess a 5-foot robin with razor beak. Technically, my favorite superhero is a character my best friend and I made up in high school named Billy Harrison. But if you're going by a superhero that actual people know, then we're going to go with Spider-Man. I grew up on Spider-Man cartoons, newspaper comics, and so on, and I just like him because I like Peter Parker. I like Peter Parker because he's a real geek, as opposed to Clark Kent, who is a fake geek. He pretends to be a geek in order to hide his identity, whereas Peter Parker is a real geek who happens to have superpowers. It's my homemade Yoda blanket. Star Wars has always been very important to me. In all seriousness, it actually helped me through probably one of the most traumatic times of my childhood. But I also just love it. Marvel. No. With the disclaimer that I don't read comic books. I don't really know anything about comic books. But I do know characters from movies and TV and, everywhere else that you know about superhero characters. And I prefer Marvel characters. I just find them more interesting. See the comment about Peter Parker versus Clark Kent. I pointed that out to my husband once, and he said that's surprising because Marvel characters are all angsty. And I said, yes, angsty and real. Also, I've always admired Stan Lee. Yoga is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, from a physical standpoint. I haven't been in a while because I've been sick, and it shows because this video is much less authoritative than usual because I have not been at yoga. Or because I have the flu. A children's librarian is the ideal thing to be. My true dream since the time I was about 7 is to be a full-time author. But that would require A, that I be really good, and B, that I concentrate on it. In an absolute perfect world, I would work for Jim Henson. Or at least I just go run away and work for Sesame Street. I can do that, theoretically. A few years back, I had a friend who was really into Neopets, and he made us all play Neopets, and there was a game that I called the Brick Game. I don't remember what it was really called, but you clicked on the colored bricks, and they all exploded when there were so many colors of bricks together, and you got rid of bricks. And, I like that game. My favorite author is Madeline L'Engle. and that would be the other source of my children's names. You know, for a music geek, I am a really bad music geek. I don't even know what of my bands I like, what kind of label they're on whatsoever. Does Rusted Root count? Is Mercury indie? Yeah, I fail as a music geek. Okay. I read reference books for fun. Dominant applies to something that exerts control or influence. Predominant applies to someone that is foremost at a specific time, and paramount refers to something that is first in rank or order. The authors, illustrators, and editors of some of the finest works of children's literature share their stories in this examination of the deeper side of the art. From the stories we hear as children to those we tell on our own, the work of these storytellers often comes from a profound place and has a more profound effects than we might imagine. If the word you were actually looking for was geekiest movie in your collection, then it would be this one, which is actually from my husband's collection, but which I strongly recommend for anyone who has ever played Dungeons & Dragons. My family actually has a PlayStation 2, because we are that high tech, but I don't really play it. I've worked a lot with Wii's in my career as a librarian. Yes, if you did not know that teen librarians often work with Wii's, that is more important information that you should know. Go to your library, support them. I am really coming across as someone who has the flu in this video. Infinite. It's also the smallest word I know. Bad joke? Depending on your stereotype of nerds, maybe my biggest accomplishment is the fact that I got married and have kids. So I just read a study that is completely untrue, that nerds are more likely to have settled down in their older age than people who don't know a good thing when they find it. What makes someone a nerd role model, as opposed to another kind of role model? And how do you know whether or not they're truly a nerd? And do I even have any role models? I don't know. Bill Nye, because I've had a crush on him since I was 18, and that's just scary. No, the real reason why he's a role model is I've always admired his, the way he frames his arguments from a scientific basis of why people should take care of the environment. Which didn't I? All of them? What's wrong with indifferent? Like I said, I'm not really into video games, but I'll go with old school because I'm less likely to get motion sickness. My husband has so many of these, most of which he got from this movie, in fact. But I'd like to actually tell you a love story. Once upon a time, I was invited to play D&D, and there was this guy who was the dungeon master, and he had a crush on me. And I had decided to play a wizard, who happened to be a runaway princess. So he decided to play a paladin who was intent on protecting and serving my princess character. For the layman, the technical definition of paladin is knight in shining armor. And I thought, oh, what good role-playing that was. Actually, I have another shirt that has a library card. Everybody needs one. Christina pointed out musical uniforms the other day, and I was in the marching band, although I'd never technically owned my marching band uniform. But here's a picture of me dressed up as Princess Leia. My best friend had this theory in college that my random useless talent was that I could throw things at the garbage can and always miss. Yes, usually, but not on purpose. It just usually happens that I read the book. And then I find out it's going to be a movie. And I'm like, hey guys, did you read this book, The Hunger Games, years and years and years and years ago? And then they're all like, yeah, whatever. And then the movie comes out and they're like, oh, wow. You know. Flight. Teleportation would be very convenient. Probably the most useful thing, but it doesn't have the exhilaration factor. When I dream, and I realize I'm dreaming, sometimes I fly just for the heck of it. Other times I try to convince Martin Freeman to show up and make out with me.
Mommy.
What?
What are you doing?
I'm talking to the camera.